Whether you like it or not, there is an inherent risk involved with our love for two wheels. Now that could be crashing, speeding, insurance, other drivers, dead badges or anything else for that matter. And we're frequently harassed for legal advice on a regular basis. We are not legal experts, which is why we've teamed up with White Dalton Motorcycle Solicitors to bring you free legal advice. Welcome back to Legal Corner. Now, another one of those frequently asked questions was, is a video camera a good idea? There was lots of kind of, do we do this, do we do that? But in general, Andrew, I know it's not a short answer, is it a good idea to wear or to have a video camera on your bike?
Yeah, a couple of points that I was going to have to slightly unpack that.
Yeah.
Your first point is wearing a video camera, because if you have it on your helmet, it's not inside a motor vehicle or a dwelling, which means the police are on a much stickier wicket seizing your helmet. They can ask you for it, you can hand it over. Yeah, it's a fairly moot point in law. It dates from the Police and Criminal Evidence Act 1984, and I know this will be of no help to your Scots viewers at all. The law in Scotland is different.
Okay, right.
And I believe it's different in Northern Ireland as well. But in England and Wales, under the relevant section of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, the police can seize an electronic device if it is in a building or in a vehicle.
So if it's on a bike?
On a bike is probably going to be interpreted as in a vehicle.
Yes, yeah.
On your crash helmet, it would take quite a lot of squeezing the law into that, but there is the infamous Police Ways and Means Act, which if you get an old school copper, he'll say, well, guess what, son? I'm taking it off you. You'll have to go and tell the magistrates. Right. And then what are you going to do? Okay. So you'll have to have the argument as to whether or not that evidence would be admissible. But
is it advisable to restrain from handing the camera over if it is on the helmet then?
If it was me,
yeah,
and I had a reason not to want to hand the video camera over, I would be saying to the officer, can you tell me precisely by which powers you're taking my camera off me? Right. I want chapter and verse on Police and Criminal Evidence Act and the codes. And I've had this discussion, funnily enough, with probably about half a dozen serving police officers. One who is a proper old school copper that tended to sort of like punch people first and ask questions second. He'd say, I'll just take it off you, and say, unlucky, tell the magistrates. Most of the other police officers I've spoken to have said, yeah, we think you might have a point, we'll leave it, it's just not worth the paperwork. And one other police officer said, yeah, I think you're probably right. If you challenge me as to my authority for taking it, because what you have to remember is police officers don't have magic powers. They are civilians in uniform who are governed by law. They're not the gendarmerie, they're not the KGB, they're not the CIA.
Albeit by a law from 1984. Yeah. Well, I'm not complaining, because it's good for us bikers. But
yeah, I would say if you are, let's say if you're an exuberant rider, let's put it like that. Yeah. Who regards speed limits as advisory for everyone else, but most definitely not for you. And double white line systems, they don't apply to bikes. Yeah. If that's your riding attitude, then it's probably a good idea just not to have a camera at all. Because if you commit what's called an absolute offence with a video camera, breaking a double white line system, failing to give way, failing to stop on a stop sign, all of those kind of things, we can say, well, you definitely did it because we've seen you do it on camera. If you are prone to committing those kinds of offence, then it's a really bad idea for you to have a camera. For the less exuberant rider, some and some, I don't think it can do a great deal of harm, but the reality is people put them on and they say, well, I'll get this in case I'm riding along on my motorbike and somebody just comes out from behind a good way and twats me off my bike. Well, okay, but you don't need a camera for that because you were riding along the main road. It might deal with an allegation of speed, but by the same token, it might also prove it the other way. Because in the civil courts, you're not governed by Police and Criminal Evidence Act. If you've got video footage, you have to disclose it, even if it shows you being a very, very naughty biker. You've got no choice. If you've got video footage of the collision and the lead up to it, you must disclose it in a civil case. Must. Okay. There's no may, must.
Again, that was another one of the questions from Facebook. Actually, there was lots of people saying, "Do I have to declare the camera if I've been involved in an accident?" And they were worried that might show evidence of them speeding beforehand.
It will, but it will have no criminal consequence because the speeding, which is the thing which most people worry about, that's probably the offence that most of us are worried about. Insofar as speed is concerned, you have to be notified of the offence within 14 days. You have to be asked who the rider is by the by the police. The reality of you having a knock with your camera and the police wanting to interrogate that video evidence to see what you were doing beforehand. I have seen it happen, but I've only ever seen it happen in fatal or absolutely catastrophic accidents, not your standard getting knocked off your bike and everyone limps away. It's on fatals. It's for the ordinary rider having the ordinary accident. That's not something you need particularly to worry about. But if the video footage comes out of the civil trial and the video footage shows you riding, I'm going to keep using the phrase exuberantly, over exuberantly, then expect it to colour the judge. Because if the judge looks at it and says, well, you were riding like a bit of a dick. A judge will put it more eloquently than that, but that's the... We do have, here we call it the dickhead test. If you look at the video and go, whew, you're a bit of a dick, then... You're fucked. Well, it does make our job a lot, it does make a job a lot harder. So if your video footage shows your ordinary riding style is, well, let's say you would pass your IAM doing it. If you're going to have a video camera, have a discreet one. If you really, really want one. But in all the years that I've been doing this job, and bear in mind that video cameras on bikes really only became a thing about probably less than 10 years ago. It's only a couple of times it's actually really made any difference. Well, the reason being is if you have a video camera, say you have a front-mounted video camera here, it's got a viewing angle of 120, 160 degrees. It doesn't actually show that much. No. Because all you do is you get one view from a single perspective of what happened. So a video camera here is no good if Billy the Builder hits you from behind in his transit van. It's absolutely no good to you at all. It's, and if somebody hoids a U-turn on you, well, everyone's seen it. It doesn't make that big a difference. So certainly the idea of getting a video camera because you think it will assist you, in all the time that we've been doing this, and I chatted about this with some of my colleagues before knowing this question was coming up, between us, and we've got probably the thick end of about 80 years of practice under our belt between us, I can think of 2 occasions where a video camera's been helpful. I can think of one where it's done us no favours at all, and amongst my colleagues the rate is about the same, 2, 3, maybe 4 where the video camera's been useful. So don't go and buy one thinking it will be of great assistance if you have a collision. It won't. You mentioned it's not really worth putting cameras on just for the sake of it, but let's face it, a lot of people now use them for motor vlogging or just putting it on YouTube, basically, put it on social media. So what can you get away with realistically in terms of speeding? I mean, I know we talked about this off camera and I was quite amazed by the answer, but it would be quite hard, from my understanding, to, even if it was pointing at the speedo, to get done for speeding, and this is doing 140 miles an hour. Is that kind of correct? It is. The 140 mile an hour takes you out of speeding and puts you into the realm of dangerous driving, which is a whole different ball game. If you have video footage of you and it shows your speedo and it shows a 110 in a 60, you'll have to be served with a notice of intended prosecution within 14 days of the offence. So you put it up 14 days later, you can't be nicked. But and that's fact. That's in writing. It has to be 14 days. It's on the Road Traffic Offenders Act. However, that is for the summary offence of speeding. A summary means it can only be tried by the magistrates, and there's a 6-month absolute time bar on a summary-only offence. However, if your video footage catches you or shows you off, as they're not catching you, put it up on social media yourself. If you put it up and it shows you crossing double white lines, hammering across junctions, generally riding like a bit of a dick. If you've got one incident, you can just about might get away with it from careless driving. If you've got a double white line overtake, followed by an undertake, followed by a wheelie, that's a course of driving, that's dangerous. All of the 14-day warnings and the 6-month time limits, gone. They're gone. So if you're going to put stuff up on YouTube, bear in mind that whilst you might think that the police are stupid and they're not going to put any resource into this, I can tell you from my own direct professional experience, if you annoy enough people, the police will throw some resource into it, and you don't need to be a genius. Now, let's say I decided that I wanted to put up a vlog of me just arsing about hoisting wheelies and generally riding like a dick. Well, chances are I'm going to do it in my locality. My hometown's Aylesbury. So when I'm out on the roads, there'll be signs saying Aylesbury, Wendover, Amersham, Tring, London, Hemel Hempstead. So you don't need to have the brains of a rocket scientist to work out, right, that lad who's riding around, let's say it's on my 701, they're going to say, right, they've got a lad on a Husqvarna 701, lives in and around Aylesbury. Now, how many Husqvarna 701s do you reckon are registered in Aylesbury? Dozen?
Yeah.
And then, of course, mine's quite distinctive. And then I wear a helmet, which is going to be different to probably 8 of the other guys that are riding around on Husqvarna 701. So within a single police national computer check, the police can nail the guy who's tearing around Aylesbury on his Husqvarna 701 because he's seen it on video and he's annoyed everyone and he's put it on YouTube. They can narrow it down to 2 bikes. All they need to do is knock on my door and say, can you show me your helmet, please, sir? That would be an unusual question from a police officer. Or can you show us your riding kit? Now, I can say no, but I then now know that they're on to me.
Yeah.
If they have reasonable grounds for suspicion that you are committing an offence and they need to prove it, they've got the right to come in and say, show me your helmet, show me your riding kit. What they would still have to do in order to be really safe and secure in a conviction is catch me doing it once. But there's always a pattern.
Yeah.
We had one guy that would every Sunday go tearing round a particular large market town in the south of England. And I did warn him he was going to get his collar felt, and sure enough, he did. The police turned up on his door and they recognised his helmet wasn't particularly distinctive, his bike wasn't especially unusual, but the video footage, they body mapped him. The width of his shoulders matched exactly the guy that was hoisting all the wheelies. He was also doing it with his girlfriend on the back. Similar. Shoulder and hip width matched because they could get those body measurements.
So you're risking his and hers. And
yeah, indeed. And
double trouble.
For that one, and I don't know how that finished up because we weren't instructed, but all the aggravating factors are there. The video footage showed some riding, and I'm no shrinking violet, but I thought the riding was outrageously dangerous. Okay. Really extraordinarily bad. And it was 2 up. So he was endangering himself, his missus, anyone else that was around him. Some of this were taking place in underground tunnels, where if things go wrong, there's going to be a big red smear down the side of a tunnel wall. That's the kind of thing which would potentially get you a custodial sentence.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So you can go to prison for dangerous driving.
Yeah.
And you will almost certainly go to prison for causing death by dangerous driving, and it's usually a minimum 2-year stretch. So putting video, I'm going to call it video evidence. If you put video evidence of yourself on YouTube in the public domain and the police want to nick you, they don't need to try particularly hard to get a nick.
So can they prove that it's that person? Yes, you've got the helmet and the rest of the stuff. Can they prove the person that was riding the bike?
So long as they can show, so long as you cannot raise a reasonable doubt, because they will say to you, okay, well, tell us who was riding.
Yeah.
How many other people are insured on this? And the other mistake which people may go, oh, it was my mate Steve from Johannesburg. Yeah, I remember now, it's my mate Steve. Right, can you show Steve's insurance? No. So you want us to nick you for letting your bike be used uninsured as well? That's an automatic 6 points. Do you want to have a think about your mate from Steve from Joburg again? It was me. Your best bet if something like that happens is keep your mouth shut and speak to a solicitor. Yeah. Because you're in a lot of trouble. The police have put that much resource into nicking you, you're in trouble. So speak to a brief, spend some money on a brief. Yeah. Because you can hang yourself so easily. The nice friendly, this is a voluntary interview. No, you're free to leave at any time. No, you're not under arrest. We just want to sort this out. Clunk, clunk, you're nicked. Because you'll hang yourself unless you know what you're doing. The police are doing their job. Contrary to public opinion, they're actually pretty skilled at doing it. They know what they're doing. Their interview techniques, which look absolutely all over the place. If you look at them from the outside, you think, oh no, they're just throwing random questions at me. They've forgotten something I answered 10 minutes ago. Who is this bloke? Is he some sort of idiot? No, he isn't.
They're just fishing.
They are fishing. They are looking for inconsistencies in your answers. They're dropping your guard. They're asking you. It's a well-known interview technique to almost discomfort you and put you at your ease at the same time, that you're asking random questions which don't appear to be relevant to anything because you'd have forgotten what you answered 10 minutes ago. They know what they're doing. You don't presume that because he was wearing a blue fuzzy jacket and a pointy hat that he doesn't know what he's doing.
No, true.
He is. He's a copper. He knows how to ask questions to get you nicked. That's kind of his job.
So go back to the first question I asked about wearing a camera on your helmet and it viewing the speedo. So where does that sit with the law?
It would be close to impossible for the police to nick you for a straight speeding.
Okay.
If you committed no other offences,
Yeah.
because of the procedures, the 14-day rule, the 6-month limit on bringing a prosecution for
Yeah.
summary-only offences, and the fact that you cannot be prosecuted on one witness evidence alone, and they're also going to have to pin the precise area where you were speeding, date and time.
Okay.
Because they can't say you were speeding generally,
Yeah.
because you can't answer that charge. You can say, well, if you tell me at 9 o'clock on the 15th of July 2020 I was speeding, I've at least got some chance to say, well, no, I wasn't. I can tell you because I was at work. If they say, well, we reckon you've been speeding, when? We don't know, just generally. You can't answer that charge. It's an unfair charge. It wouldn't get through the magistrates. So just straight speed, you're unlikely.
Even if it's relatively high?
Well, see, this is where you get into difficulty,
Yeah.
because if, say for example, you videoed yourself travelling at 90 outside of school in a 20-mile-an-hour zone, the police are going to have you for dangerous.
Yeah.
And all of those safeguards are gone. All they will need to show is that it was you and that you carried out that offence. And they don't have to be especially specific as to time. They can give a wide range of time as to when it was done. But you would have to get to the point of really, really annoying the police for them to throw that level of resource into you.
So there's no line as such on what speed is what. It's just has to be a definition of dangerous driving. That's
as a general rule of thumb, if you're travelling at twice the speed limit,
Yeah.
that gives grounds for a dangerous driving charge.
Okay, yeah.
So 60 and a 30.
Yeah.
Just do the maths. 40 and a 20.
Yeah.
That could make out a dangerous driving charge.
Right, okay. Now, James Douglas on Facebook, thanks for the question, James. Again, this is quite a common one. Can you legally overtake a car on double white lines if you don't cross the white line itself?
Yeah, nice straightforward answer.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Can you?
You can, yeah. The offence is crossing the white line.
Yeah.
Just a word to the wise, and James might have found this if he does this often, and God admit I've done it as well, is particularly if you've got noisy pipes, it's not an uncommon incident that we have to deal with when somebody's overtaken a car a little bit snug, particularly if they've got loud cans on, and the driver has a mad panic. They'll say, why? And for whatever reason, I don't understand the psychology of this, panicky drivers will tend to steer towards what they perceive as the danger. The rational thing is to steer away from danger, not your panicked driver. Because whilst you're not committing the offence, it's complying with the road traffic sign or direction. So as long as you don't break it, you're okay. And there are various exceptions, passing broken down vehicles, tractors travelling, I think, at less than 10 miles an hour. But that's not the question James asked. If you pass very close to a vehicle and you incommode or inconvenience them, you are committing the offence of careless and inconsiderate driving. Yep. So if your overtake would make a reasonable person veer away from you or change their course, you could potentially be committing the offence of careless and inconsiderate driving. But again, in all the years that I've been doing this, it's extraordinarily rare to see an inconsiderate driving charge brought. The police so rarely bring. I probably haven't seen one in about the last 5, maybe 10 years.
Okay.
So, if you can make a discreet, straightforward overtake inside the white lines, you're absolutely fine to do so, and I've done it for years.
Great. Thanks, Andrew. See you next time.
No problem at all. Good to see you.